Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful for You channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The world of American daytime television, with its unique economy of storytelling, thrives on the amplification of intimate conflict into operatic, universe-altering spectacle. Few shows have mastered this alchemy as consistently or as enduringly as The Bold and the Beautiful, a program that has, for over 3 decades, transformed the sun-drenched studios and manicured estates of Los Angeles's fashion world into a crucible for exploring the endlessly recursive dynamics of love, betrayal, family, and corporate warfare. Within this ecosystem, no relationship has been more central, more tormented, or more symbolic than the Bridge Saga, the epic, star-crossed romance between Brooke Logan and Ridge Forrester. It is a pairing that has weathered countless infidelities, rivalries, most notably with Taylor Hayes, paternity revelations, and temporary marriages to seemingly every other available character in the zip code. Therefore, when a script teaser promises a scene with the stark, brutal headline "You're fired" from Ridge to Brooke, it is not merely a plot point, it is a seismic event in the show's mythos. This single line of dialogue, "You're fired," uttered not by a billionaire caricature from a reality show but by a man who has professed undying love for his target across decades, functions as a dense nexus of narrative history, character pathology, and thematic resonance. To analyze this moment, Ridge's cold dismissal leaving Brooke completely shocked, is to unpack the entire engineered machinery of a soap opera, examining how personal history is weaponized, how corporate power becomes an extension of patriarchal authority, and how the very language of love is perverted into the lexicon of punishment. This scene, a classic B&B shocker, is not an anomaly but the distillation of the show's core philosophy, that in the high-stakes worlds of fashion and family, the boardroom and the bedroom are ultimately the same battlefield, and the most devastating wounds are always inflicted by the hand that once promised to cherish. First, to comprehend the monumental weight of this dismissal, one must journey through the deep, convoluted history of Brooke and Ridge. Their story is not a linear romance but a cyclical myth. Brooke Logan, the so-called slut from the valley, a label both misogynistic and enduring, began as a young secretary at Forrester Creations, forever an outsider to the gilded Forrester dynasty. Ridge, the eldest son, the brilliant, mercurial, often insufferably self-righteous design heir, was her ultimate prize and her perpetual torment. Their relationship has been a masterclass in deferred gratification and reciprocal betrayal. They have been each other's great love and great ruin. They have built each other up and torn each other down with a dedication that borders on the religious. Brooke betrayals, with Ridge's father Eric, with his brother Thorne, with his arch-rival Bill Spencer, are legendary. Ridge's own abandonments, repeatedly leaving Brooke at the altar for Taylor, his wavering between the good doctor and the passionate Logan, are equally foundational. Every "I do" has been shadowed by a "how could you?" Every reunion has contained the genetic code of its own destruction. Their bond is less a marriage and more a mutual addiction, a cycle of rupture and repair that defines not only their lives but the very narrative engine of The Bold and the Beautiful. To fire Brooke is, symbolically, to attempt a final excommunication. It is an act not just of an employer but of a patriarch, a spurned lover, and a wounded deity of the Forrester pantheon. It says, "You are not only no longer my wife, you are no longer of this house. You are expelled from the kingdom." The context in which this firing occurs is therefore paramount. It is almost never a simple matter of corporate incompetence. Brooke Logan, despite her origins, has become a formidable businesswoman in her own right, the co-owner of hope for the future and a key figure in the company's chemistry and marketing. Ridge firing her is rarely about profit margins or failed collections. It is, inevitably, about a profound, personal transgression that Ridge interprets as a betrayal of the Forrester trust. Perhaps she has aligned with his nemesis, Bill Spencer, again. Perhaps she has withheld a catastrophic secret about a child's paternity. Perhaps she has questioned his authority one too many times in a board meeting, challenging not just a CEO but a husband, a man. The firing is the moment where the personal feud spills over, irrevocably, into the professional sphere, and Ridge uses the full weight of his corporate authority to enact a personal punishment. This is where the scene's power is generated, the chilling shift from the language of intimacy to the language of corporate law. The home, the bedroom, the shared history, all are suddenly governed by the cold, impersonal rules of employment. "You're fired" is a sentence devoid of the emotional vocabulary of their decades-long war. It contains no "I hate you," no "we're through," no lengthy recrimination of past sins. It is administrative, final, and in its bureaucratic chill, utterly vicious. It reduces a cosmos of shared memories, children, weddings, countless declarations of destiny, to a simple matter of terminated access. Her keycard will be deactivated, her office cleared out, her presence erased from the daily workings of Forrester Creations, the institution that has been the stage for her entire adult life. Brooke's shock, then, is entirely logical and deeply layered. It is not the shock of an employee unfairly dismissed. It is the shock of a queen being dethroned, of a foundational pillar being told it is merely decorative and disposable. For all their fights, Brooke operates within a paradigm where she and Ridge are eternal, two celestial bodies locked in gravitational conflict but forever part of the same system. A firing shatters that cosmology. It attempts to relegate her to the status of a mere outsider again, the Logan from the valley, the interloper. Her shock is a reflection of her core belief, that no matter what, she belongs at Forrester Creations. She earned her place, she married into it, she fought for it, she is the mother and grandmother of Forresters. To be fired is to have her very identity invalidated. Furthermore, her shock stems from the mode of delivery, Ridge's cold dismissal. This is key. Brooke can weather Ridge's fiery anger, the shouting, the accusations, the storming out. That heat is familiar, it is the passion of their connection inverted, but it is still a form of engagement. Coldness, however, is the absence of connection. It is emotional nullity. It suggests a level of contempt or disillusionment so profound that Ridge will no longer even grant her the dignity of his rage. He becomes the CEO, not the husband, the judge, not the partner. This coldness is a void more terrifying than any explosion of anger. And Brooke's stunned silence, her wide-eyed, tearful paralysis, is the only appropriate response to an emotional annihilation. The scene's construction is a masterpiece of soap opera syntax. It almost certainly takes place in the iconic Forrester Creations office, a space that has witnessed more clandestine affairs and power struggles than any boardroom in television history. The setting itself is a character, the sleek modernism of the company a stark contrast to the raw, primal emotions on display. The camera will linger in close-up, a hallmark of the genre. We will see every micro-expression on Brooke's face, the initial confusion, the dawning comprehension, the crushing devastation. We will see the set of Ridge's jaw, the steel in his eyes, the way he might avoid her gaze or deliver the line while looking straight through her. The score will drop out, leaving only the painful silence after the words land, or it will swell with a dramatic, melancholy chord underscoring the end of an era. The dialogue preceding the firing will be taut, laden with subtext. Ridge will likely list her offenses in a clipped, formal tone, stripping their personal history of all its emotional context and presenting it as a series of corporate crimes. Your actions have jeopardized the company's stability. Your alliance with Spencer constituted a conflict of interest. Your decisions have been a liability. He translates the heartbreak into a HR report. Brooke's retorts will be emotional, personal. After everything we've been through? After all I've done for this family? This is about us, Ridge, and you know it. This clash of languages, corporate versus intimate, is the core drama. He speaks the language of power, she speaks the language of legacy. His is designed to exclude, hers to remind him of an inescapable shared past. Thematically, the firing is a potent exploration of patriarchal authority and female resilience. Ridge, as the de facto king of Forrester, wields his power as both a birthright and a weapon. Firing Brooke is the ultimate assertion of that birthright, an attempt to purge the Logan chaos from the ordered Forrester world. It is a declaration that, in the end, the company is a Forrester fiefdom, and her presence there is contingent upon his goodwill, a goodwill she has, in his eyes, forfeited. It reinforces the classic soap opera trope of the powerful man controlling the woman's destiny through economic means. Yet, Brooke is no passive victim. her shock is not acceptance. It is the prelude to a war. The firing, rather than ending her story, typically activates her quintessential Logan spirit, the scrappy, determined, often morally flexible fighter who clawed her way up from the valley. It sets the stage for her comeback, whether through legal maneuvering, alliance building, often with her formidable Logan sisters, Katie and Donna, or her daughter Hope, or the inevitable exploitation of a future Forrester crisis that only she can solve. The firing creates the narrative vacuum into which Brooke's resilience will rush. It proves that she can never truly be exiled because she is too integral to the ecosystem of the show itself. Ridge may own the building, but Brooke is a force of nature. Moreover, the scene functions as a crucial piece of audience engagement strategy, the promised B&B shocker. This is not just storytelling, it is an event marketed to viewers. In the fragmented, on-demand media landscape, the soap opera relies on creating these must-see moments, these water-cooler cliffhangers that generate discussion, speculation, and, most importantly, tune in tomorrow. The headline Ridge's cold dismissal is engineered to trigger a visceral response in the longtime viewer. It promises a rupture in the status quo, a violation of the show's most sacred dynamic. It hooks the audience with the question, is this finally the end of Bridge? The answer, historically, is always no, but the journey through that no is where the drama resides. The shock value is not in the permanent consequence, soap operas traffic impermanence's illusion, but in the acute, temporary agony of the rupture. It is the narrative equivalent of a controlled demolition. The old structure must be spectacularly blown apart so that the painstaking, captivating process of rebuilding can begin. In the grand, Baroque tapestry of the bold and the beautiful, a firing is never just a firing. It is a divorce, an exile, a declaration of war, and a desperate, flawed attempt at self-preservation all at once. Ridge You're Fired is the moment he tries to replace the chaotic, passionate, unpredictable rules of Bridge with the clean, cold, authoritative rules of the CEO. It is his attempt to win a decades-long war by changing the battlefield. But Brooke's shock is the first volley in the counter-offensive, for her shock will melt into anger, her anger into strategy, and her strategy will inevitably lead her back into the orbit of Forrester creations and the man who cannot truly exist without her as his foil, his nemesis, his destiny. The cold dismissal is, paradoxically, the proof of their enduring, infernal heat. To be so brutally formal requires a history of unbearable intimacy. To be so shocked requires a foundational belief in a bond that transcends corporate hierarchies. This scene, in all its heightened, melodramatic glory, is the purest expression of the soap opera form. It takes the universal fears of rejection, betrayal, and economic disempowerment and inflates them to a scale worthy of Greek tragedy, played out not in togas but in designer suits and power dresses, under the bright, unforgiving lights of Los Angeles, where the most beautiful things are often forged in the boldest of fires. The firing is not an end. It is merely the devastating, necessary prelude to the next, inevitable reconnection, proving that in the world of the bold and the beautiful, you can terminate an employee, but you can never, ever fire a legend. To delve deeper into the anatomy of this scenario, we must dissect the specific character pathologies that make this confrontation inevitable, examining the psychological undercurrents that transform a corporate decision into a deeply personal assassination. Ridge Forrester, as the scion of the Forrester dynasty, operates under a burden of legacy that is both his armor and his prison. His identity is inextricably fused with Forrester Creations. He is not merely its CEO but its living embodiment, the guardian of its heritage, its aesthetics, and its patriarchal line. This self-concept is fundamentally aristocratic. Forrester Creations is his birthright, his kingdom, and his sacred trust. When he perceives a threat to that kingdom, and Ridge's perceptions are often filtered through a lens of profound self-righteousness, his response is not merely that of a businessman protecting assets, but of a feudal lord defending his domain. His decisions, especially those involving family members within the company, are thus never purely rational. They are deeply emotional judgments draped in the language of corporate governance. Firing Brooke is the ultimate regal decree. It is the king banishing the queen consort for treason. The coldness is not just emotional detachment, it is the performance of royal prerogative. He must suppress the tempestuous, passionate Ridge, the man who has serenaded her, fought for her, and broken countless vows for her, to become Ridge Forrester, CEO, a figure of impersonal authority. This chilling transition is, for him, a form of psychological survival, a desperate retreat behind the battlements of his title when the emotional landscape of his relationship becomes untenable. His cruelty is in the performance of protocol, a methodical dismantling of their shared life under the guise of a boardroom proceeding. Brooke Logan's psychology, in contrast, is that of the ultimate insurgent who became the establishment. She entered the Forrester world as a disruptive force of nature, sexually liberated, emotionally transparent, and unimpressed by the gilded cages of wealth and tradition. Over decades, she internalized the very values she once challenged, fighting to have her name carved onto the founder's plaque, literally and figuratively. Her claim to Forrester Creations is not one of birth but of conquest, perseverance, and sheer force of will. She believes she has earned her place, not just through marriage but through her contributions, the creation of the Brooks bedroom line, her stewardship of hope for the future, her role as matriarch to a new generation of Forresters. Therefore, Ridge's firing is not a simple demotion, it is an erasure of her life's work and a brutal recasting of her back into the role of the outsider, the Logan interloper. Her shock is the shock of historical revisionism. It is a denial of her entire narrative arc. When she sputters, "You can't do this. I built this company too," she is defending her autobiography. This moment exposes the fundamental, irreconcilable tension at the heart of Ridge's worldview, where authority is inherited and legitimacy is blood-born, versus Brooke's, where authority is claimed and legitimacy is proven through trial by fire. The firing is Ridge's attempt to reassert the primacy of the bloodline, a declaration that her proof is forever insufficient. The narrative utility of such a cataclysmic event extends far beyond the immediate emotional havoc. Structurally, it serves as a massive reset button, scrambling existing alliances and creating new, temporary power vacuums. The fallout from Brooke's firing would ripple across the entire canvas of the BNB. It would immediately pit the Logan clan against the Forrester faction. Katie Logan, with her complex history of heart conditions and moral authority, would become a fierce defender, potentially using her own shares or influence as a Spencer Publications heir to challenge Ridge. Donna Logan, the seemingly flighty but fiercely loyal sister, would launch a campaign of sensual or sentimental persuasion, perhaps on her ex-husband, Eric Forrester. Eric himself, the founding patriarch, often represents a more compassionate, forgiving counterpoint to Ridge's rigid absolutism. A firing of this magnitude could trigger a direct power struggle between father and son, reviving the classic Eric versus Ridge dynamic that fueled the show's early years. Eric might view Ridge's action as a cruel overreach, an abuse of power that harms the company family, and move to reinstate Brooke, creating a civil war within Forrester Creations. Simultaneously, the schemers and opportunists of the show would swarm. Sheila Carter, that perennial agent of chaos, might see a vulnerable Brooke as a potential pawn or an unlikely ally in her own war against the Forresters. Bill Spencer, Brooke's often lover and Ridge's eternal rival, would undoubtedly swoop in, offering not just a shoulder to cry on but a position at Spencer Publications, a move designed both to woo Brooke and to inflict maximum professional humiliation on Ridge. This would instantly reignite the Forrester-Spencer corporate war, a reliable engine for plot. Thomas Forrester, Ridge's son with his own obsessive and troubled history with Brooke's daughter Hope, would be forced to choose between paternal loyalty and his own complex relationships. Would he side with his father's cold logic, or would he see the firing as an unjust attack on the mother of the woman he loves? Hope Logan, Brooke's daughter, would be torn between her mother and the man she views as a father figure, potentially threatening her marriage to Thomas or her role at Forrester. Steffy Forrester, Ridge's daughter with Taylor and the current co-CEO, would be thrust into an impossible position. As a leader, she might understand the need for tough decisions, but as a woman who has witnessed the cyclical destruction of Ridge, she might also condemn her father's method, creating a fascinating fracture in their usually united front. Furthermore, the firing would serve as a crucible for Brooke's character evolution. Stripped of her professional title and her daily presence at the company, who does Brooke Logan become? Does she revert to her earlier, more scheming Brooke from the Valley persona, fighting dirty to reclaim her throne? Does she attempt to build a rival fashion house, of Logan designs, directly challenging Forrester creations and forcing Ridge to see her not as a subordinate but as a competitor of equal stature? Or does she experience a crisis of identity, questioning whether her entire life's struggle to be a Forrester was a futile endeavor, leading her on a path of introspection and potential transformation? This last possibility is the most tantalizing for long-term storytelling. A broken, reflective Brooke, perhaps finding solace and purpose outside the Forrester orbit, could eventually return not as a supplicant but as a truly independent force, forcing Ridge to woo not just the woman he loves but the powerhouse he failed to contain. The firing, in this sense, could be the painful birth of a new Brooke, one no longer defined by her relationship to the Forrester name. The dialogue in such a scene is a tightly wound sonata of subtext. Let us imagine a potential exchange, extending the moment. Ridge, voice low, devoid of inflection, the board meeting concluded an hour ago, Brooke. The vote was unanimous. Effective immediately, your position as head of public relations and creative consultant for Hope for the Future is terminated. Your access to all Forrester Creations systems and properties is revoked. Brooke, a bewildered laugh. What is this, Ridge? Some twisted joke? The board? You are the board. This is about Paris, isn't it? About me questioning your designs for the fall line? This is pathetic. Ridge, not meeting her eyes, straightening a pen on his desk. This is about a pattern of behavior inconsistent with the company's strategic direction. Your recent collaborations with external entities have created untenable conflicts of interest. Your judgment has become compromised. Brooke, compromised? Compromised? She steps forward, her shock melting into fury. You mean my judgment in trusting you? In believing that after 5 marriages, 30 years, and 2 children, we were finally a team? That I had a voice here? This isn't about a conflict of interest, Ridge. This is about you being unable to handle a woman who doesn't bow to your every decree. This is about control. Ridge finally looks at her, his eyes like flint. This is about Forrester Creations. It has always been about Forrester Creations. Something you, with your Logan loyalties, have never fully understood. This company is my legacy. My father's legacy. And I will not let anyone, not even you, jeopardize it any longer. Security will escort you to clear your office. Brooke, tears now streaming, but her voice is steel. My Logan loyalties? Our son is a Logan Forrester. Our grandchildren carry that name. I am this family, Ridge. I bled for it. I fought for it. I sacrificed everything for it. And you're just a coward. You'd rather hide behind memos and board votes than face the mess we made together. You're not firing an employee. You're trying to erase a history. Our history. And you will fail.